Welcome to the Ring Spaces studio in Neil on Business. Neil on Business is a show where we dig deep into the entrepreneurial mindset and try to discover what makes business success, from discipline to disruption. I'm your host, Neil Darling, entrepreneur, father, husband, and straight shooter when it comes to what it really takes to win in business. Each week, I'll plan to sit down with movers and shakers ranging from former Marines, business leaders, bold thinkers, and disruptors who traded uniforms for boardrooms and built successful businesses and brought the attitude and fortitude required for success. If you're looking for real conversations about leadership, grit, and building something that lasts, you're in the right place. Let's get to work. All right, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, let me get my mic. This is Neil on Business. Welcome to the podcast studio. I'm Neil Darling. I am so pleased to meet the Fredericksburg legend, in the business community at least, Dan Craddock. Everybody knows you. They've probably seen you walking down William Street, the 7-foot guy who looks like a punk rocker.
Hard to miss.
Yeah, and believe it or not, expert in brand building. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Dan, you're a well-known entrepreneur. Here in Ring Spaces, we want to focus on business. We like to really tell the story from the beginning, and I know you got some exciting things, but you've been doing some things around several businesses, and our audience here is kind of interested in hearing the story, and we're going to kind of cover it starting from the beginning. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so from the very beginning. So I was born on June 30th, 1984 in Naples, Italy.
Okay.
My
military brat.
Yeah, my dad was like the two army guys in Naples for some reason. He was in logistics and stuff. So I was born in Naples, bounced around a little bit. We were in Wiesbaden. So my mom's from Heidelberg.
Oh, nice.
Meine Deutsch ist nicht gut. That's about all.
Wie geht's? Wie geht's?
The worst thing you can say to a German person when they say they're from Germany is you just say eine Bier bitte. It's the most obnoxious. They're like, yeah, we got it. Yeah, so I spent most of my childhood in a really small town in Texas, Coppers Cove, Texas, a little pimple on the butt of Fort Hood.
And, Army, Air Force?
Army.
Yep,
okay. Yep. So it was first Cav. So my dad was in logistics running DRMOs in Fort Hood. Yeah. My mom, being from Germany, she worked for government, but put herself through night school. I remember being a kid and doing homework next to mom doing homework, and she's pretty awesome. She got bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. She retired very high level government, worked her tail off, and same with my dad, one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my entire life. And so I consider myself fortunate to have grown up around two. It's hard to have two alphas in one house, but but they're definitely there.
Well, they don't call them German shepherds for nothing. So I know them. Well, I know the type.
Yeah, so I'm just growing up with two folks that are hardworking, dedicated, and a lot of integrity. Despite not realizing it as a kid, I think is a big part of who I am now. But yeah, so we were in a small town in Texas, and we moved to Woodbridge in 1999. And I remember we came to Woodbridge, and my mom was like, "Hey, there's all these kids down the street hanging out at a place called Starbucks. You should go check it out." And I was like, "What the hell's a Starbucks?" Right. I've never even heard of it before. And like the slug line, the HOA slug line. I was like,
I'm
like, so let me get this straight. Hitchhiking is illegal unless you go into this parking lot that's not sanctioned by anybody, but you can hitchhike from this parking lot and go to work.
It is the most efficient thing ever Washington's ever done. It's really,
and the reason is because they stayed out of the way.
Yeah, the government stays out of it until crazy.
Imagine that, right? But yeah, so it was a bit of a culture shock coming to Northern Virginia from sleepy town, small town.
And that was
Texas.
pre-Woodbridge.
I think it was. I think it already started getting the name. It already started getting the name of it. But and just kind of came up here and had a bit of an identity crisis of like, who am I going to be? It's funny. I always went by Daniel, and like one of the first kids I kind of became friends with in Woodbridge was like, "That's stupid. We're going to call you Dan." And that was it. Like just done. But really kind of found I think my people getting involved with music and art. I've been an artist my entire life.
What kind of art?
I was always an illustrator. I wanted to grow up to be John Arbuckle from Garfield. So he's a cartoonist. So just always wanted to do that. And but in high school, I kind of really got into abstract art and really got into graffiti. Sorry, Mom. But, you know, we were really into graffiti and just the culture and the art culture of that and the music culture behind that. And so, you know, through those friends, really kind of found who I was in my creative space and just fell even more in love with music. You know, I'm fortunate that I was 15, 14 years old when like Napster and Winamp and MP3s was a thing. And so I didn't have a lot of friends when we first moved here. So that first summer, all I did was like download one MP3, come back 3 days and see if it was done. Oh, I like that band. And then I'd go on
56K.
I go on Ask Jeeves and say, well, who did they do a tour with? And then go download another song. And so through that, it was like, you know, as I kind of progressed and got a little bit older, I started going like, okay, well, graffiti is super illegal and very dangerous. And got in graphic design because I was like, oh, I can kind of do the same visual art in Illustrator and graphic design. I was very convinced I was going to just do gig posters, like band T-shirts and posters. I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
I want to ask you something. So I'm not you by a long shot, 180 degrees. I went to the Metallica concert in Blacksburg with my daughter. She graduated.
Awesome.
It was the best thing I ever did. It was good. But I'm watching them do set after set, and you know, I've even cover bands where they just sing everything, and then I have the other side of things. It's almost like you are seeing things that I'm not seeing. You're hearing things that I don't hear. You know, it's so different. You know, I don't know how you can visualize and remember. I mean, to have somebody who's musically inclined and artistically inclined, because it's not that. But I don't say the rest of us, or at least me, I'm completely blind to it. And even people that are really good at languages and other, I just like, my question is always like, gosh, do you think in Spanish or do you think in English? I mean, like, you speak 3 languages. What language do you think in? And you know, it's just sort of an interesting question. How is that? Do you notice that? Like, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've always had kind of this eye for visuals, and when I'm kind of in down mode where I'm just kind of thinking, I'm often staring or off into space and looking at stuff, but I do, like, I see building structures and I see trees and I see these things and I'm pulling colors out of it. I'm kind of consistently, the brain's consistently going, which can be a problem too. But yeah, I mean, that's, you know, I sometimes, like, if I'm listening to music, like, I start visualizing paintings in my head comparative to, you know, song lyrics sometimes. And so a lot of my paintings that I still do, when I have 5 seconds of time, I have a studio in our office at Metro Nova. So a lot of my paintings are, you know, they'll have bits of song lyrics hand drawn into the paintings and stuff. So it's kind of all a big melting pot for me. And then the graphic design part of it is actually the hardest part. So I think that's a big misconception.
My wife is an amazing cook. She's a self-taught chef, but she can taste something or smell something and she can replicate it. You know, like
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's like playing music by ear.
It is incredible. You know, that she can do that. So your graffiti, I'm just curious. So like, where do we see the original Dan Craddock in Hoodbridge?
Hopefully nowhere. I was not great at it.
Or was it on one of the trains? Because in the ring spaces here, we have the train go by. You know, it's so funny because you could say, oh, that train was in Harlem. I don't know if it was in Harlem, but it was definitely in New York. You know, there's just all this artwork in this train going by, and then a clean one goes up and, you know, one comes down and it's filled with stuff. And it's fascinating to me that it seems like people are inspired, but they just find a way of expressing it, you know, in a way that they could be all making 6 figures as graphic artists somewhere, you know?
Sure. And it really is. It's such an interesting art medium in the sense that it's an expression, right? Obviously. But it is an expression that is filled with danger and fear and uncertainty, and it's an adrenaline rush. I think all of those aspects kind of come together, and it's this idea that with some graffiti artists, this is idea of how much can I produce, right? It's an oversaturation is the goal, right? It's called going like all city, meaning like you've got a car, like in New York terms, you've got a car that goes through every borough, right? Like you've got cars in every borough and stuff like that. So it's this idea of like mass production of quick art. You know, and it's crazy. There's the subculture and understanding graffiti is really interesting that I think a lot of people don't understand. You know, there's hierarchies of things, right? So like in the subculture of graffiti, there's hierarchies of what can go over other things.
Yeah.
Right? So like there's like throwies is just like a hand, a marker, and you're throwing. It's called a throw. You're throwing your name on it. Okay.
Yeah.
There's throwy, and then there's a tag. Is maybe you've got a graffiti can, but it's like a little bubble letter, so that goes above a throwy. You can't do a throwy on top of that. And the next one up is a piece, or like a bomb, which is maybe a little bit more elaborate. A piece, is kind of more muralistic, and it's the highest grade. Like you have to get to that point, and if that's on the wall, you do not put anything on top of that.
Oh wow!
For fear of retribution.
Yeah.
So there's like this weird kind of internal policing that kind of happens, and that's where you see crews and stuff. So I don't know, it's a weird place. I was never great at it, but it was always great to me.
Yeah.
Just the art and music culture that I was able to absorb, just being in that atmosphere. Like still to this day, I really still live there and love and appreciate it so much, and it's made me a lot of who I am today.
So you're in Woodbridge. You're in high school. You go college, or did you go college, or did you go military?
I tried my hardest.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So I actually in high school I was in AP art classes. The only thing I was great at. I struggled in high school. I enjoyed it so much I went to a 5th year of it. So my senior year I had to go back and take like 2 classes. So I was working full time and then kind of going back to school, finishing up stuff. I was not a great student. I'm old enough to still come from an era of there wasn't this understanding of like learning disability or ADHD or anything. It was just like, especially in Texas, it was like you're just stupid and lazy.
Yeah.
And I hung out with other kids that were kind of not meeting the standards of things, because we all got called stupid and lazy, and you tell a kid that enough, they're going to believe it, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a lot of high expectations for myself in high school, but was told like, well, you go to high school, you finish high school, you go to college, you finish college, you get the job, you stay there forever, you get the gold watch, and then you die.
Yeah.
That's the expectation. And so I did my best. I went to community college. I actually attended the Art Institute of Washington.
Oh, okay.
Dropped out. So I was studying graphic design there.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting there and the professors would be talking about practices in design that were outdated by 2 decades. And I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And the school actually got in a lot of hot water a few years after. They almost got sued into non-existence. But so what I would do is we'd have a break between classes and stuff like that. I'd actually just, because it was in Roslyn, I'd actually walk across the Key Bridge to M Street in Georgetown. I had my little messenger bag and my laptop, and I'd go into like Rhino Bar and all the places, and Commander Salamander and all that.
Ever been to Hennessy?
Probably.
Right next to Crazy Horse.
Was that on M Street in Georgetown?
Yeah. No, it's gone now, but it was across from the mall there.
Yep.
That side, you're not far from.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So I'd go in there.
I was a bartender there in '92 when I graduated and have a job, and there's no jobs. I mean, there were no jobs, and we never served anybody over 21. It was like the au pair bar in the Marine, 8th and I, and the Army, Guard, President's Finest, whatever, and they would come in there every night, and then one night at 2 a.m. a bar fight happened, and I got bit trying to break. I was the only one in the bar, and the bouncer came out, and I remember like thinking like it was a Tuesday night or something. Like, what am I doing?
Did I just get bit by a human being on a Tuesday?
I just got bit, breaking up a fight in a bar, and I'm like, I just snapped out of it. I was like, I gotta go take a temp job, or so I got to get out of here. This is not working. And it was funny. It was an interesting time in the '90s for sure in the Street.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, no, so it's the same bars. I would actually walk in. I wasn't even old enough to drink.
Yeah.
So I'd go in and I'd just say, hey, I'm just trying to build a graphic design portfolio and try to get some experience. Mm-hmm. And as it'll kind of date the story a bit, I was like, can I design your MySpace flyer? Uh-huh. I'll do it for free, pay me in a sandwich or something. And so that's kind of how I did it, man. Yeah. I just started, but it gave me that experience of dealing with customers and understanding, due dates and all that. And
so that's what inspired you to establish Metro Nova, is that?
Yeah, so I was, pretty much from that point on, I was doing freelance work.
When did you get to Fredericksburg, I guess, area?
2017.
2017, okay.
Yeah.
So this started up north?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, I started realizing pretty quickly. I got married, and my wife and I had our first kid, and I was like, okay, so maybe I'm not going to make a career out of like designing T-shirts and posters, right? And maybe that's not going to happen. So I started picking up commercial clients and doing freelance and stuff. And I actually worked at a commercial printer as a production designer for 3 years. Worked my butt off, and really, it was just like a little print shop. And then I said, hey, we should do this. We should make signs. Well, I don't know how to do that. Well, I've got a vendor. Let's build that part of the business. I built a website part of the business. I built a logo design part. Did all this stuff, and it wasn't a really great situation. There wasn't any opportunity for me to kind of level up in the place.
Yeah.
Not a great leader.
Yeah.
You know,
but it wasn't meant to be.
It wasn't meant to be.
It was meant to give you all those skills.
It was meant to get me in the right direction, I think. You know, and my wife and I had our second kid, my daughter, and I got into it. My boss was kind of a jerk, and I got into it with him day, and you know, I was just like, hey man, I'm out. And I put my 2 weeks notice in, and we laughed at, like, I went outside, I called my wife, I said, I think I quit my job. She's home with a newborn, and we kind of joked that she said, she was like, well, I was too exhausted to leave you. You know? So, but that was it. So that was, that was 2015.
Yeah.
And so I ran it for about a year or so up in Woodbridge, and I had, you know, some freelance clients and stuff, and we were very fortunate. You know, even some of the customers from that print shop had called me and said, hey, where'd you go? I was like, oh, hey, I'm starting my own thing. I'm out of there. They're like, well, we want to use you, because I was, you know, Barking print production, kind of the same. That shop, all the shops do that. They send stuff out. So I just got contracts with those same warehouses and said, hey, I'm going to start this company where we do logos, but I also design all the business cards and all the stuff and produce everything and drop ship it to the client's house.
Yeah.
This is before Vistaprint stuff. So this was like earth-shattering, you know, business model. So these clients were calling and saying, hey, where'd you go? And I was like, no, you know, I left and I've started my own gig and we want to go with you. And I even said no. I said, I don't take, you know, food off someone else's plate. I appreciate it. And they're like, no. We don't like this guy. You sold him the business. They thought I owned it because I worked hard. Right? I worked hard and I took care of folks. They thought I owned it. I was like, no.
So that was Metro Nova?
That was Metro Nova. Jumping into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So Metro Nova went full time then.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And, you know, it was scary, man.
Yeah.
Scary with 2 kids, a newborn, you know, and we were young and broke and didn't have any money. And,
Yeah.
But what it taught me was the importance of valuable content, because I'd get on Facebook and all right, who wants a logo today? Nobody. Okay. Who wants business cards today? Nobody.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I realized pretty quickly that everyone's trying to sell everybody everything on Facebook at this time. You know, LuLaRoe was like everywhere. Right. It was all what Facebook was. And, so I just started making content, man. I just started shooting videos on my terrible phone. And put them on Facebook, and it'd be like, well, today I learned that I did my sales tax the wrong way. Here's how to not screw that up, you know. Or here's today I learned how to set up Google Workspace. Here's how to do that. I just started doing that, just telling real stories about what I was screwing up in business and some thoughts and ideas I had about branding and how you can do it, and it just really grew from there.
Well, we got to have you back. We'll change chairs because it sounds like, you know, you've been doing this kind of stuff longer than I have. This is episode 9 or 10. So, but it sounds like you got enough experience to tell that story. You know? Yeah,
I've been really fortunate, and I should stop saying that. I've been very fortunate to get to the point I'm at with my career and knowledge and the experiences I've had, and that I can share those experiences. You know, and I always say I've been fortunate. People say you're not fortunate. You've worked your butt off. Yeah. So you know, you've gotten here. So, but yeah, so you know, branding has just always been something I've been really passionate about, and so of course I started like 2 other companies because I was like, I got a good idea and a logo that's really cool.
So tell me about this. Give me a time frame. So what was the first company?
So Metro Nova Creative was the first. It was originally called Visual Villain Design. Actually,
I love that.
And actually,
much better than Metro Nova.
Tattoo right there, Visual Villain. But a client of mine said, "Hey man, have you ever thought about a name change? It's a little weird going to accounting asking for a check to for Visual Villain." You know, and I was like,
I disagree.
I guess
dude, you sold out.
I did. You know, I was like, okay. But what's funny is, you know, I was telling you that I was reminded that me and my friends ran a like pirate internet radio station out of my apartment at one point. It was called Metro Nova Productions.
Oh, really?
And so I kind of just took that and went, okay, just switch out creative and Metro Nova Creative. And it was Metro because Metropolitan, Nova, Northern Virginia, and people that Google searched Metro Nova Creative, Metro Creative. So
it was punk rock and pirate?
Pirate radio. Yeah, so like radio is basically no rules, no regulations. No, not actual pirates, but we ran a few episodes, and we had a friend JP that had a great soundboard, and you know, you'd go to our website and it would just live stream out of our apartment. Our friends would call in and we'd be stupid.
Oh, you were way ahead of your time.
It was fun, man. You know. We would talk about like punk rock and, you know, different bands we liked and stuff like that. And we came this close to getting Gym Class Heroes was a big group back then. We were this close to getting them to come on the station, but didn't happen.
So tell me your family's role in supporting your entrepreneurial, you know, journey here. Sometimes it's predictive and sometimes it's random. It sounds like it may have been a little bit random, but what's been the role of your family in what you're doing? And we just preface by saying, we talked about with a previous podcast about it was with Nate Dobbins, as a matter of fact.
Love
that entrepreneurs got, the first pitch you do is really to your wife, and then there's people around you, your friends and family, who love you and trust you and would write a check, probably for any reason, but that it's important to have your ducks in a row, justify the return, make sure that you stick to that. It's so easy to, take advantage of that and lose your way, and then you fail, and then the mushroom cloud gets a little bit larger and a little bit larger, So what's it for you? What was your family's role?
Well,
was it a limiting factor or was it a driving factor?
It was, I'll say with my wife, it was a really good lesson in communication with your spouse. Yeah. She wasn't happy about it. And we had some fights and there was some animosity, and we worked through that, in therapy and communication and talking and understanding each other. And you just grow together, right? But it was hard, and she's like, I can't believe you quit your job. Like, oh my God, what are you doing? We've got a family, and and she's upset, and I'm like, we talked about me starting a business. She goes, one day, not like tomorrow, but in my brain I'm like, she said let's do this, we're going, she believes in me. And so there's some impulsivity that's needed, but it's not always the right impulsivity. But so I'm not going to beat around the bush. It was hard. It was rough. We had a lot to kind of overcome, but we were also just, again, we were young. We were so young and having kids, and there's the stresses of having kids and trying to be the parents we think our parents think we're supposed to be, and there's a lot of expectations there. So I'm incredibly proud of my wife, Caitlin, and blessed to have her by my side. She's our operations manager at Metro Nova now. We had a really supportive family. My folks were amazing. They, when my daughter was born, my mom retired. She's like, I'm done. I'm gonna be a grandma. So we had amazing family around us to kind of pick up on those things, right? Helping with our kids, so I can get out and get clients. Because my wife had to go back to work, and so my kids went with grandma and hung out with their mom. With my mom and my dad, and so we had a tremendous support system in the sense of helping with those odds and ends, right? Or like certain months were a little lean, and hey mom, I need help at the grocery store, can
I borrow this roll for bread?
I
won't bring it back.
A lot of hey, do you come over for dinner? Oh look, we made way too much food by accident. Here's leftover. So I mean, there's those opportunities that whether we were aware of it in the moment, now you look back, it's been 15 years or 10 years running it full time, 15 that have been in crazy graphic designer guy, but like looking at that stuff and kind of looking back, you really do, I think, appreciate the amount of support that family does have. Now with Metro Nova, I had $500 in my bank account. That's all I had. I used it to buy a set of business cards for myself and a set of postcards for myself, and that's it. It's cash. I've never had a run a loan on it or anything. So it's been a self-built business.
So generally, tell us about it now. How is it scaled? Hundreds of customers, thousands of customers. So we currently manage.
So with Metro Nova, we do kind of a number of different services. So where brand consulting is something that I do. So if clients just want some direction, but we do a lot of logo design and websites. Those are kind of the two primary core services, and then we can design and print almost everything. The only thing we do is like pens and stuff like that. So we've got kind of a good mix. We don't do those. We'll send you some friends. So. On the website side of things, I think we're currently managing about 130 client websites. So we have our own server. So we do, host maintenance. So we've got about 130, I think, that we're currently managing. I've lost count of how many we've built. And I say I've designed more logos than most people have thought of, in 20 plus years. We've got a pretty awesome client base, and we get great opportunities through hard work and showing up with our community has opened some amazing doors for us. Like, we got to do so much. We've done all the First Friday branding, the new branding for the Fredericksburg Area Museum. So we get to work on some pretty awesome projects because of that. So we've got we're on a small staff right now. I think the highest we had 7. So we're at about 4 right now. So we've got 2 full-time designers, myself and my wife's our operations manager. And so that's probably our kind of where we're going to be for a little bit. The economy's not exactly throwing cash at people right now. So
we're all waiting.
Everyone's waiting, you know. All the small businesses are waiting.
Settle down. Like, oh, it's new administration. It's going to settle down. And it's like, it's just not.
Right. I was just laughing out front, and I was like, okay, cool. Like our 95th financial crisis in the last 3 years. Yeah. Got it. Let's get through it. So, yeah, so I think we're probably where we want to be. But what was interesting about the model of that business is my friend, a great friend of mine, Brian McGuire, who owns Illusions Wraps, also in town. Amazing company. This guy's got people that drive down from Pennsylvania to bring their vehicles down here to get wrapped by the, you know, just absolutely the best. He and I have developed a great, you know, relationship, friendship over the years. A couple of years back, we had a bunch of customers that wanted screen printing T-shirts, and he had a bunch of customers that wanted screen printing T-shirts, and we were like, well, screw it.
Yeah.
Let's open a screen print shop.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we were able to get that up and running, Sure Shot screen printing around Lafayette Boulevard, and it's just been such a fun ride on that one too. And
that's hard because there's a lot of competition. You know? I mean, nationally, internationally, I mean, it's like
there is.
You know.
It's a tough business. It's a pretty saturated market. There's enough business to go around. You know, there's some other guys in town. Longs, you know, Drew over at Press Rank. Those guys are all great. Everyone's super kind, you know. So it's a really cool community. I think there was, during COVID, this massive influx of people that were like, oh, I'm going to screen print.
Yeah.
You know, because they're at home and it's a home business. You can run it from home if you want to. And now we're seeing a real decline in the traditional screen printing sense. You know, you've got a lot of the DTG where it's like the transfers they heat press on shirts, and those are okay, but they're not good for long term, you know. So yeah, we got kind of thrown into the screen printing business, and I think what makes us unique, most are just production, but you got Brian and I combined 40 years in graphic design. You know, I think we're the two best designers, you know, it's two of some of the best designers in the region, and you've got us looking at your stuff, so we kind of have the custom design part of the screen printing business. So that's been just over 2 years that we've been running that.
And how important is the brand?
It's incredibly important.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and a lot of people get it mixed up because they think the brand is just the logo, right? And that's not. That's the identity, the logo identity, and a lot of people don't understand that it's a recall mechanism. So the brand is actually the experience that you feel interacting with that product or service, right? So, you know, if your water heater breaks and it's, you know, the day before Christmas and this plumber comes out and saves the day, and you have, oh my God, thank you so much, you saved me. Christmas is not ruined, and you had this amazing experience with that plumber, and he's like, here's my card, let me know if you ever need it. And there's that logo, it's easily rememberable, and you know, and it's unique and interesting. And then, you know, 8 months down the road, you've got a neighbor that's like, oh my God, you know, I've got this issue, and you go back in your house and you see that, you know, or the refrigerator magnet they usually give you or something, and you recall, right? Because that's what it is, a recall. You recall the experience you had, and so you can kind of interact with the business. So all of those things working together, right? Colors and logos and fonts and content and all that stuff, the collective of that is the brand, and it's insanely important. You know, I think there's a lot of small business. Actually, why I really got into Metro Nova was when I worked at that print shop, business owners would come in and be like, hey, do you have the vector file for your logo? And they go, no, I got a JPEG. I just took some clip art off Google. Or, you know, I'm like, why don't you have professional, you know, design? I'm like, well, we can't afford $30,000 for this firm or whatever. And I said, well, there's got to be a better way, right? And so that's what Metro Nova really came off of, like building affordable branding packages for businesses. Because if we make them look professional, they're going to have a better success rate. Right? We know that 75% of local economy is driven on the backs of small businesses. And so the more of them that stay open, the better it is for everybody, better it is for our community, right? And that's a big part of what we do, is making sure those businesses look legit, they look professional, they feel good, you know, so that they have a better chance of getting past that first year, getting past that 5 years. And we just know, right? All our moms told us don't judge a book by a cover, but we sure as hell do. You know, and it's simple. And I do this all the time. I'll do these presentations and I'll say, do you want to hire company one and I show a really bad logo? Or do you want to hire company two and I show a logo I've done for that business? It's always company two, every time, especially in the home, you know, in the trades industry, we do a lot of stuff with the trades. These people are welcoming you into their home. You better look right. It's the most important things in some sense.
So is that a journey? How do you get an entrepreneur that knows he needs a logo? How do you develop it? I mean, people are like, why does it cost so much? How do you determine what the logo should be? Is that, let me just talk to the owner, or is it
it's a discovery process, you know, and I think a lot of graphic designers, there's a lot of graphic designers and then there's logo designers. but not every graphic designer is a logo designer.
Okay.
You have to kind of think constructively, and you have to think differently, I think, in that sense. Because logo design is construction, and it starts with having a conversation with that owner.
Logo's across the room. I
know.
I don't know if you like it or not. I'm waiting for a comment.
Oh, well, we'll have a consultation.
And obviously, Barking Barley is up here, everybody. You can see it.
So normally we sit down and have a consultation with the client, and we understand. I get to know their business a bit. We have like a discovery document.
Yeah.
The most important question we ask is, who's your customer?
Yeah.
Who are you trying to impress, right? Because a lot of logo designers, they'll go, "What kind of logo do you like? Got it. Here you go."
Yeah.
Right. And customers get kind of confused when I say, I don't care what you like.
Yeah.
You're already sold on your business. I don't need to impress you.
Yeah.
I need to know who you're trying to sell your product or service to, so I can build a logo that'll be applicable to that taste. So you have to know who that target customer is, and that's so important. And then my job is to take that information and construct something creatively.
Yeah.
That'll then make the business owner happy, but attract that customer.
Now, you have a lot of small customers. Have you been able? Have you touched the big time? Have you been able
Yeah. We've got a pretty good range of small businesses, mid-sized businesses, some government contract work. We've done a lot of stuff with the city here. We work with Gunston Hall, so George Mason's Gunston Hall, some big federal contractors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we've got a pretty good expansive amount of clients at this point. Yeah.
When you look at the corporate customers, the ones that have a budget and they're smart and maybe they're rigid, but is it a different process when you're dealing with, you go in and you got 8 people around the table and...
Design by committee is always hard.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, design by committee is always tough. And yeah, I mean, it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
But having been doing this for 2 decades,
yeah.
I'm usually pretty prepared for it and can kind of navigate my team also, through like, hey, here's the way we need to push. And a lot of times those folks are relying on me to guide that conversation and guide that process.
Yeah. So you're really active in the community. You have, at least with Metro Nova, community engagement. Tell us about that, and certainly about what you're doing with Main Street.
So I'm a big part of what we do is community focused, community driven. Supporting the businesses and folks in Fredericksburg who embraced my family in 2017, like I've never seen before. Yeah. Right? I've never felt more at home as I have when we moved here.
Yeah.
And so this new rotation for Main Street, I decided to go ahead and, approach me and asked if I wanted to join the board, and I went ahead and agreed. So Main Street is actually a national organization, nonprofit. It's a national organization, and your historic downtowns throughout the country can kind of apply for charter, or they can become a chapter of National Main Street. And there's some designations and things you have to kind of check over, and you have to follow some regulations, and there's annual reports and all those things, just like any nonprofit. But if you're designated a chapter of Main Street, you get resources, you get opportunities for grants, there's some funding from the national organization, and then there's typically your city will then also have part of their budget will go into funding part of Main Street as well. And its goal is really to kind of work hand in hand with economic development, so EDT and tourism and stuff like that. Our job is to kind of work hand in hand. So if you think of EDA and EDT, the Economic Development Authority and tourism, their job is to get people that aren't from here to come here. Right? Our job is to create cool stuff that happen here, so when they get here, there's stuff to do. So we really are kind of a partnership in that sense. And then so some examples of things that Main Street's been responsible for, and a lot of people don't know this, and that's kind of me coming onto the board. I was like, I really want to emphasize the brand of Fredericksburg Main Street, because people need to know, right? We're creating all these great core memories, and people don't know who's doing it.
Yeah.
So if you've ever been downtown on a First Friday, the First Friday is a great program. It's through our Arts Commission. It's a celebration of the arts in our city. It's typically the rollover of the new galleries. A portion of the First Friday is the sip and stroll. So that's where you can go to certain restaurants within the Main Street district and have a cocktail and take it with you and walk up and down the street and go, see what you see. So the sip and stroll portion of First Friday is the Main Street program. So, we contribute $13,000 a year to maintain the ABC license and, pay police officers for the event and stuff. So it's a hefty price tag to put that event on, but it's an amazing opportunity. It brings a lot of people. Sometimes 10, 11,000 people will come down for a sip and stroll on a nice Friday, and that's a great program that Main Street puts on. And then, the summer solstice program that's coming up, that's a great event. this past Christmas, all the Christmas lights down Caroline Street and the huge Christmas tree lighting and River, that's all Main Street. Main Street did all that, funded all that stuff through grants. And so we create these amazing.
Shout out to Red Door Lighting.
Yeah, Red Door.
Who's here.
Yeah. Shout out Red Door Lighting. So I was able to kind of, get that conversation started and kind of get those folks talking together. And what a great visual, what a great treat to have in our city.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's Main Street's goal, right? Is bring people downtown and create events and programs that will enhance the ability for the businesses to succeed.
So what's your opinion of the state of the business union in Fredericksburg? What do you think? How are we? Are we good? Are we not good? Are we getting better? Are we getting worse? What do you think? Being honest.
Yeah. And that's a question that I've been asked quite a lot in the last few days. I think we're in a really interesting time. So I've been downtown, Metro Nova's right on William Street, right across from Castilla's. And that's how you know if you're from here. You don't call it Castiglia's, it's Castilla's. Yeah. So we've been on William Street there. And so we've been here through COVID. We were there with each other. And the resiliency that I've seen with the businesses during that period was astonishing. Right, you see the retail owners staying up late trying to figure out how to get online sales put together for their company because people can't come in right now, so they're trying to figure out how this. And the restaurants are seeing these business owners staying up late and bringing them food, and everyone's helping everyone out. And they were worried about a lot of big turnover during COVID. Right, they're talking about 40% is some people were saying we're going to have 40% loss of business, meaning the lease was not renewed. And I think we were somewhere around 10.
Yeah.
So it's astounding.
Yeah.
So this city is amazing. It's built on resiliency, and it's built on the backs of hard work and compassion and care. And so I think it's one of the strongest local business communities I've seen. And even folks that aren't from here that are involved with other small town businesses are like, there's nothing like it here.
Yeah.
So I think that I should preface by saying that is something that's really strong in place that I'm hopeful will continue, because I do think that we're weathering a storm a bit.
Yeah, I was one comment on COVID because I remember Renato's. I mean, it was like sit outside, and they're like, okay, and then it turned into probably the most amazing renovation ever.
The patio,
the patio is great,
yeah.
But I just, and get back to entrepreneurial mindset. Sometimes it's adapt, adjust, overcome.
Yeah.
Sometimes when everything's steady, she goes. Everybody's complacent, and it does take a. Sometimes it takes a curveball to kind of get everybody.
You gotta shake it up every now and then.
Digging deep, and you end up, I don't say better off, but you end up. Yeah. You're gonna. Some people are gonna close, but some people end up being a lot stronger. And I noticed I walked by there the other night, and it was packed. It's like.
Yep. Yeah, and they're an amazing place, right? And this is part of the spirit of this town. She's got Spreading Smiles as their nonprofit. So we did, we donated the branding and the website to her program, and they're the ones that give, I don't even know, hundreds of free Thanksgiving meals to families every year, and they pack lunches for kids every Thursday and deliver to the schools and stuff. So, but she's a true showcase of what this city is, and we're so appreciative to have businesses like her. And this is part of why I've had so many people calling me. There was an article that came out, I can't remember where it came from, but it was saying that foot traffic's down, and there's all these vacant businesses downtown, and what's happening, and what's the state of downtown, and I think there's some truth in that, and there's some, they're being a little hyperbolic. And so, yes, there are some along Caroline Street specifically, there are some closures, right? Some of that is those business owners just retired.
Yeah.
We talked to them all, and they're like, yeah, we've been doing it for 20 years. We're done. We're just going to move to Florida and be happy. So some of it's retirement. Some of it is just, hey, I just don't want to do it anymore. Some of it, I just couldn't make it, and that does happen. And the, decrease in foot traffic report, I mean, folks are seeing it. I think, it's a number of different factors. I think some of it is economy, right? Folks are just a little nervous. Every day is a new story. Been here before. Every day you don't know what you're waking up to, and when you don't know what you're waking up to, it's kind of hard to get motivated to go spend some money. So I think there's some economic stress and uncertainty that's driving some of that. I think another part of it that maybe folks haven't thought about is there's a return to work order, right? So before, we were a really transient city because we had a lot of folks that were teleworking, right? This whole region someone is attached to the federal government and likely worked from home. So if you're wrapping up at 4, you could stroll down the street or come down and hang out or have lunch, come down for lunch or come work at Anita's Cafe if you knock a couple hours out. So of course we had more foot traffic. You got people return to work, they're not here. They're not getting home until 6:30 or 7 at night.
Certain amount of absurdity with that, because they're looking at the metro areas are saying, but we're suffering, and there's less pollution, there's less stress. I mean, you sit in anybody sits, literally people lie about the commute, but they spend 2 or 2.5 hours each way. Oh, it's not so bad because you got but you can't make soccer, you can't do you can't have an animal because they just can't stay until 8:30 until you get home, and then you're up at 4:30 to try to catch the train, but you're live a half an hour from the train, and so
make all the excuses in the world.
It's sort of like this is the DC snapback, which was there's businesses up there said enough. We have these parking lots and there's nobody in them. At some point, they won out. And here we go.
You got canceled leases and all these massive buildings, especially up in the Northern Virginia market along 95. And I've got friends that are federal, and they're like, they told us we all have to come back to work. So I guess I'll figure out how to get my team of 5 to go back to this office so that we can hop on Zoom and talk to someone in Minnesota.
Exactly.
And it's like, it's the dumbest thing in the world. But the decisions that are made there are above my pay grade. But I think all of that stuff really kind of what's affecting kind of the area and stuff.
Are you a serial entrepreneur now? Is that what you think?
I don't like that word, but I think that's what some people would describe. Well, I told my wife no more.
Okay, we'll see.
That was the rule, so no more.
Well, whatever. We'll see. So you're in Charleston 2017.
Yes.
You're walking around. What happened?
Yeah, so we're visiting some friends in Charleston, South Carolina, and they're like, we got to go to this place called The Barrels out on Folly Beach, and we go down there, and I'm like, all right. And, it's kind of a brewery, tap house. Well, they weren't brewing, it was just tap house. And we go around back, and there's just dogs running everywhere. I'm like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
And they're like, this is The Barrel. And it was like the happiest place in the world.
Oh, yeah.
People having a beer, it's sunny. There was a guy playing an acoustic guitar. There's dogs going crazy, having a great time. So it was awesome, And so I remember sitting there going like, we need this in Fredericksburg, because we had just moved here. So I was like, Fredericksburg is such a dog town, but there's nowhere to go. And I was like, I need to bring this business here. And so I came up with the name actually like the next week.
Yeah. I love it. Barking Barley.
Yep. So the Barking Barley was born in Charleston, South Carolina. And, I actually did the branding because obviously, jumped right into doing the logo and identity and kind of working on that. It was in my brain. And so the logo design is actually, at the time, my dog Riley. So it's kind of her silhouette, and there's a little, barley for her ear. And so Riley was kind of I was like, I want a place for me to bring my dog. She and a lot of folks downtown knew Riley. She came to work with me every day. All my neighbors there knew her. We'd take her walk, and she'd go get her snacks and say hi to everybody. At River Rock and Hyperion, and we'd make all the stops, and everyone have treats ready for Riley, and everyone knew her. And unfortunately, 2 years ago, right before Christmas, we lost her. And pretty quickly.
Sucks.
One of the hardest.
Yes.
My wife and I got her the day after Christmas the year before we got married.
Yeah.
And as far as she was concerned, she raised all our kids.
Yeah.
She was a special part of our family.
Yeah.
And she was with me every day.
Yeah.
And she went with me to work every day. And we kind of like, I picked her up because she was older, so she couldn't hop in my truck anymore. So I picked her up one day, and she yelped and cried. I'm talking like a Thursday or a Friday. Yeah. That was a little weird. And so took her to the emergency vet, and they did some x-rays, and basically they were just like, her liver enzyme count is like 5 times as high as it's supposed to be. It's, she's got this huge mass. She's going to go. It's not a if, it's a when, and it's probably in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, right? Yeah. She had never shown any signs of just displeasure or pain, and so it was quick. And they gave us some medicine to kind of give us the weekend with the kids a little bit. We took her downtown, and she ate a Maggie's hot dog.
Go to Carl's.
Went over to Carl's, got some ice cream. I think she got some Benny's pizza. We went to Hyperion. So we went and just had a farewell tour, and and I took her on a walk, and so everyone could say goodbye to her. And I mean, she was part of our block, right? Yeah. She was part of our family, and that was hard, But so the Barking Barley was, that was it, right? Like everyone has that kind of connection with their dog, or most people do. And
Yeah.
and the city deserves that type of a business.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, kind of our mission statement for right now is a place for life lovers and leash holders, right? And it's just, we want to build this place where folks that have that connection and love with their dog, you know, they have a place that they can go to and have this sense of community that they can build. And that's why the membership program is called the Pack. You know, you're going to join the Pack. You're part of our family.
Right, yeah.
You know, and that's really important to us that we have that place. And as the city progresses and grows, we're having visitors come from out of town, right? And they're bringing their dog because they see on our social media, like, oh, there's dogs everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's dogs everywhere.
Yeah.
But there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you can go to, you know, Rebellion and sit in a 4x4 table area, you know, and if you've got a dog bigger than a Chihuahua, it's a little awkward.
Yeah.
But there's no, you know, place for them to kind of run and play. And so it was important for us to, about 4 years of looking for the right location, the last 4.5, almost 5 years.
Why did it take so long?
Well, about 5 years ago, we started, Travis Stoner and I, Travis owns Fusion Rehab and Wellness, one of my oldest friends came to me and said, let's do this. I said, okay. So we started looking for a space, and we put a letter of intent, an LOI, in on a couple spots, and it just kind of fell through, or this didn't work, and we shelved it. You know, we were like, okay, we'll figure it out. Maybe not, maybe one day. And then a couple of years ago, this property that we've got now became available for lease, and it was just like, oh,
Yeah.
this is perfect.
Yeah, for people who don't know, it's right near the Rough House. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody can see that from the road. I'm not trying to, but it's so. I think it's so cool that you're right next to the Rough House. Whether those dogs will be sitting there looking for the Rough House, trying to figure out how they get over.
Yeah, how do we go play?
How do we get a beer and get our owner and have everybody go to the Rough House? We play with each other, but we want to play with the humans too, if possible.
Yeah, so we're at 1515 Old William Street. It's old with an E, but it's next door to Rough House, and next door to that is the Fredericksburg, vet right there. And so I've kind of affectionately been calling it Dogtown over there.
Yeah,
we're just past College Heights, so we're really excited. It's been a long road. We've had to rezone the property and do special use permits and construction. It's an older building. It was originally, I think it was called Fredericksburg Memorials, but they did a lot of the headstones. Families that have their loved ones buried right here in our cemetery got headstones made there and final arrangements and stuff.
Oh yeah, nice.
So we've kept the inside of the building. We've kept the quality memorials since I think 1938. We've kept their kind of mural painted up on the wall, and so it's got some history to the building. And
well, let's talk about the business model a little bit. So it is a subscription-based business, which is have you run one of those before?
Kind of. So on Metronova side, we call it creative subscription. Yeah. So a client can come in and say, these are the kind of a retainer essentially. So
it's like hosting.
Yeah. So we've got clients that say, I want 10 hours of creative whatever I want every month. So in that sense, we've got it. But it's something we've kind of been building, and I've been kind of building in my head for this entire time, trying to figure out the right way. There's businesses like this all over the country. Yeah. There's only 2 in the state of Virginia. Yeah. It is not easy to do. Yeah. 0 out of 10 do not recommend. Right. It's a tough business to get up.
My first glance at it, and again, I've been looking from afar for a while, but it almost looks like, franchise ready. It almost looks like
Well, it's because I do a really good job.
The last one is maybe, Fredericksburg, but who knows what going to happen in Culpeper and Warrenton, and who knows?
Yeah, and that's always the biggest highlight of what I do in brand development is when my clients go, somebody else asked if we were a franchise. That's chef's kiss. Yeah. We did our job right, and
I get that at ring spaces all the time.
It does feel that way. It does feel that way. Yeah. The orange is great. I do love what you've done.
Okay, I got a little. Okay, good.
You've really stuck to the brand colors out on the floor. It's a beautiful space. It's my first time here, so I was really impressed.
No sense to me. I don't understand that.
I don't either.
Because we are incubating businesses in the city. I mean, part of this is, people like being here, and then you're like, you get a little bit big for here, and you're like, go find an office, And
we got some stuff to do.
Why we're not working together is beyond me. So
we've got some work to do. I think so. Yeah, we've got some lunches that we need to get ahead of us, and so. But yeah, so with the Barking Barley, it is a subscription-based model. So really, due to insurance, we have to have membership. So you can go to barkingbarley.com. right now, and there's buttons that says join the pack.
Please do.
Please do.
Yeah, please do.
And you can go ahead and start out creating your membership profiles. So that's going to be you and your spouse or partner filling out a photo, so we know what you look like, your contact information, you put your credit card on file and those things, and then you set up a profile for each of your dogs. So same thing. They have to have the photo of the dog, it's kind of the breed, some descriptive materials. We do require rabies, distemper, and border Varicella shots. So you do have to upload those documents into the dog's profile once all that's complete. And once we get a little closer to open, we'll push out the link so you can actually pick which subscription model that you want to go with. So we have an annual option, a monthly option, and then just a day pass. So if you're just coming to visit, hey, I'm going to bring my dog. I already got everything filled out. I'm going to come visit for a day. We have
if
that
you
option.
pretend that your dog is drinking beer, it would be about 3 beers.
Right.
3 beers.
Yeah. We look at it as
3 pints and your dog's in. You know, and whatever.
So it's so we're excited about that. Now, a lot of people ask, well, can I bring my dog and just hang out? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll have the front of the property has a great open seating area with some picnic tables, so you're welcome to come. We'll have a max of the amount of dogs we allow in the park at a time. So there'll be some nice areas out front with some picnic tables. You're welcome to sit with your dog, enjoy the sun. We've got some great signature hot dogs we've been building the recipes on.
I love that,
yeah. So and all the hot dogs are named.
The whole menu is pretty much hot dogs.
That's it. Yeah,
that's great.
Keep it simple. So all the dogs are named after dogs that the owners have had throughout time. So there's a Riley and a Walker, which was.
And you had kind of a friends and family soft opening. Everybody you ate every kind of hot dog, and the dogs came, and everybody was like hyper analyzing how they were interacting on the property, and it was a success. Right?
It was great. Yeah. So we had a little Memorial Day ownership meeting and brought the kids. So we all brought our kids and our dogs and let them rip and roll and made every hot dog recipe and did our final tweaks. So I think I think it was the Weller was one of the most popular.
The Weller. Okay.
The Weller. Yeah. So there was some definitely some fan favorites. Pickled red onion, brown mustard.
You're making me hungry. Yeah, they're going to podcast today. I haven't eaten, so please stop. But you should have a good following. I think you're going to have a lot of people from probably. What's great about Fredericksburg too is it's the center. You have King George. At least Western King George, and you got obviously Spotsy, and you got Stafford, and beyond somewhat. People come in. So I think you're going to have really good success with this. It's just a great idea to go into the city and find a place to walk the dog, park them on the main lot and walk around town and and give the dog what they need and have time to romp around and have a beer. Now tell me about the beer. You're gonna have a wide selection. You're not doing microbrew. You're not brewing beer or anything like that.
We're not brewing beer. None of us have the time for it. So we're gonna have 6 beers on tap. One will be our house beer called the Belly Rub Blonde. That'll be made by someone locally. But we'll have the other 5 will kind of be on rotation. We want to try to stick to semi-regional and then can selections. So no glass on
I love it. I wish you would expand that to the Labrador Lager and the Puppy Pilsner.
We'll see. I think that's the idea is that we've got it open. So we're going to start with the 6, but everyone kind of has a feeling it's going to grow pretty quickly. So we're excited about that. No glass, no bottles, no glasses on premise. Obviously, the dogs are the customers, right? They're the number one customers. So we want to make sure that we're safe there, and the referees are going to be the employees. So they'll be kind of monitoring, making sure people are acting right. We have a rule that says if you or your dog drink too much, you're out. And so we're going to stand behind our staff. And so if you're acting a fool, and they ask you, hey, we're cutting you off, we're probably going to stand by them, and I think that's going to be important because the safety of our customers being the dogs and their people is paramount to us. And so we're fortunate we're going to have hopefully one of the vets in the area. We're working out a deal where they're going to come and do kind of monthly safety training with the staff and kind of ongoing knowledge. So if you come work at, and we're hiring referees right now. So if you end up coming to work for us, not only will you have a great time, you're going to be able to play with dogs all day, which is great. You get some good training, and we want to make sure that they feel safe and confident and comfortable making decisions. So that's going to be really important.
Well, that's awesome. So are you going to do a soft opening? Are you going to, when is it going to open, I guess? And we're going to make fun of the city a little bit.
Yeah, so November of last year.
Yeah, exactly. You don't drink anymore. I was kidding when I said the city's permits took so long that.
Yeah, I just gave up on everything.
You actually are over alcohol completely.
I laugh now.
You'd probably be a vegetarian by the time it opens.
Right, no hot dogs. No, I kind of joke all the time that and I've got my dog. I've since Riley passed away. I've gotten a dog, Stevie Nicks, rescued from the Fred SPCA, like the rest of our dogs. Yeah. And Stevie is kind of a butthead. So I'm like, man, I don't drink. I can't even take my dog to my own dog park. What am I even doing here? That's just kind of. Yeah, and I told you about I was down in Jacksonville area, Argent Park, and visited my mom, and we took her dog to get its nut and nails clipped while we were visiting, and I mean Florida's got it all figured out. I mean, it's like it was almost a city block. It was like a half a block of, there was a spa, and there was a place to play, and there was a place to board, and there was a place, I don't know if they had a bar. I don't know if they did, but everywhere I looked, I was like, oh my goodness, why don't we have anything like this, up in the north? So, yeah, I think it's a great business model. Yeah. I'm really excited to watch how successful you're not. It's not like a wing and a prayer. You're pretty experienced in business, so it should be good. I've got a great ownership team with me. Travis Stoner, like I said, Fusion, they've got multiple locations and stuff. So we've got a great ownership team. It's just been getting through the hurdles of it, right? Yeah. The insurance. It took me 7 months to find an insurance company. Yeah. So there are people like, a dog park? Yeah, we'll insure that. And then I go, cool. And I'm like, wait, is there a bar there? I'm like, yeah. They're like, never mind. We're not insuring that. And then somebody will be like, we'll insure a bar. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, wait, what's this dog park bar? And I'm like, there's a dog park. Like, no, never mind.
He was thinking about opening a beer bar with a dog park, two separate entities with a fence in between. Yeah. Trying to figure out a way to have two businesses with
It got to the point I started an LLC just for the park. I was like, screw it, we'll float two policies. But they all know who we were. So they're like, you can't come in with a fake mustache on and pretend like you weren't the guy I just talked to and said no to. So we did finally end up finding someone that would write a policy for us. And then it was off to the races of hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, right? And it's a lot, right? There's pace and bureaucracy. Yeah. We went through a rezoning process, special use permit process. We had to do 3 public hearings in front of City Council where we invited, residents to come and voice their concerns, of which some people did have some concerns about noise, and they talked and we heard them and addressed those concerns and made them very aware, like, we're part of this community. Yeah. We want to be good neighbors. We're not just here being opportunistic and sticking something in here to make a bunch of money and screw you guys. Yeah. Last call for dogs is 8 p.m., right? Yeah. We want you to be able to go to bed at night. Yeah. So it's a lot of that process, and it was amazing, the folks from College Heights that came in and voiced concerns and opinions afterwards, that we want you to know we're excited about the business. We're going to come. But I think that's the beauty of this country, right? Like, it's their civic duty to come voice their opinion, be heard. Yeah. And that's that process working efficiently and correctly. And so it's kind of cool just to be able to be part of that too. But yeah, I mean, it's a really unique business and a really unique building, and there's some hurdles that we've had to jump through with Dominion and with the city and stuff. I don't want to fault either of those organizations. I think what we've got is an abundance of need and an understaffed scenario, right? Yeah. Like, there's one guy that does all of the things for we have one health inspector for the city of Fredericksburg. Yeah. And it's a big city. Yeah. Some folks don't remember that includes Central Park. Yeah. So I think there's some hurdles there in that sense, again, above my pay grade. But, I think that's one thing that I've been able to kind of take from this position, and now with my position on the board for Main Street is kind of putting together a workbook. So it's almost like a greeting package. If you want to do business in downtown Fredericksburg, come to Main Street. We're going to pool our resources and knowledge and kind of be your Sherpa, so to speak. And we're going to walk you, okay, what kind of business are you doing? Great. These are some resources that you're going to need. Here's the first meeting you're going to set up. So Stafford does a great job with this. So we're very lucky to have Josh Summit here now from Stafford. But we want to have something similar, so that we encourage businesses to come to downtown and not have to make some of the mistakes and some of the wrong turns that we've made, which is that's your duty as a business owner.
Let's end on that. I want to focus a little bit on the entrepreneur. Now, your journey is, this is an excellent story. Thank you. But what advice do you have for somebody? When Nate was here, and I kind of focused on the the Riffy and restaurant side a little bit, but I love what they do, and very innovative. I think where I tell people, if you want to own a restaurant, maybe you should take an equity piece in what they're doing and understand these concepts, understand the business, and spread your risk, get some return, and then, when you still want to do it, then maybe you do it. Because I've seen a lot with, I think they romanticize restaurants, and it's, I've worked for years as a,
one of the hardest things
on M Street, I was a bartender, it's, I see it, I understand it, but it is a grind, and it'll break you if you don't do it right. So what advice do you have for an entrepreneur who maybe doesn't have as much experience as you, but how do you boil it up and say, take that risk, do it in a calculated way, but don't be afraid to get away from your cube and your 5-hour commute.
Go
ahead and roll the dice, and this is how you talk to your wife and get it done.
I think first talk to your partner, get their opinion on it. They're going to be your biggest advocate, right? Like, you have to have a strong bond with your partner. You just, that has to happen first. I think there's a few bits of advice because we get a lot of small business. We have a startup package, so it's like a logo, website, and we give you a set of business cards. It's perfect, right? And so we get a lot of people that are starting. Go to the SBDC. It's over in Ely Village, Small Business Development Center. Susan Ball, director, amazing. Great free resources to start business, right? Educational stuff, learn how to do QuickBooks, all these things. SBDC, always send them there. Next thing I say is find a networking opportunity to get into. Like, everyone kind of poo-poos on network marketing a bit. When you first start, all you got is time. Go shake hands, build a network of people that you can rely on, that can rely on you. That's incredibly important, because it takes a village. Can't do it by yourself. And this is assuming you don't have any money starting this business. A lot of us don't. Obviously, look at brand development. The biggest thing is be flexible. Because I think a lot of people will come in and they say, well, I'm going to sell widgets and wadgets, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put all this effort into widgets and wadgets. And after about a year, the market's going to dictate what you sell. They're going to say, we didn't want wadgets in the first place. And so just mind that, right? The first year, you're going to kind of be figuring it out. And don't get too hung up on one thing. Have some flexibility is incredibly important. I think another thing is get into therapy. You have to have a place. You got to have a place. Business will kill you. It is lonely. Being an entrepreneur, being a business owner is one of the loneliest jobs. It is incredibly difficult. Even though my wife's incredibly supportive, and especially before she started working as her operations manager, folks that don't run businesses don't understand the complexities of it, the emotional complexities of it. And so, go to therapy, right? So I've been sober and in therapy for 2 years, and it's it's important.
And it's interesting because it's the founders thing. You're actually birthing this thing. Like, even Barking Barley, you're birthing it. I know there's a similar kid in North Carolina, or there's one in Charleston, but it's your thing, and that's interesting. But it does take a life on it. If you do it right, it's its own thing. It
is.
You have less and less influence over it, because it develops its own life. It's just weird to explain a business that way, but you nurture it, and it's brutal, in the first few years, and it can break you, or you could get by, but it's not. There's no easy street, even. You know what I mean? It just takes forever. And hopefully that. But if you get there, again, what's nice is that you have some freedom in this country. It's one of the best things about this country is that you can be an entrepreneur and be successful. That's what being free really is, I think. You just have a lot more flexibility than sitting in a cube in the Pentagon. I always make fun of those folks. I feel bad for them.
They got a lot of money to spend on nothing because they're too tired.
And they miss the beautiful afternoons because it's always dark when they're getting home. It's just unfortunate. But
I think that's an important part of it. And I think that's probably the last bit of advice I give people is set boundaries. Because everyone gets in it and their hustle and grind culture, hashtag hustle grind, it's BS. The only thing that'll get you is an emotional breakdown. Like, you're not going to survive. The human body is not meant to sustain that level of highs and lows consistently for a year. Set boundaries. Right? Be home and ready for dinner. Spend time with your kids. Take the Saturday off. Right? You have to do those things or you will not. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I think a lot of people get that backwards.
I love the advice about, whatever you're doing, get the therapist. It's so funny because it's true. You should. I mean, it's just, you should maintain a long-term relationship with somebody to talk to, because you're going to need to blow that steam off, and you don't want to do it on your partner. You don't want to do it on your family. You don't want to do it on your peers or your suppliers, or, everybody's got a bad day, but, you want to make sure that you balance that out. And you don't drink too much, and you don't do other things too much. You got to balance it out. So, Man, fascinating talk today. Anything else you want to share with us? Anything before we go? Or
No, just come on down to the Barking Barley. Hopefully, open this summer. I think the one thing I'll kind of end on is our downtown business community needs everybody.
Yeah.
So, if you love downtown, if you love what we do, now more than ever, come, help, show up, support, shop.
I will say this, Dan, I know you, but I don't think I've really gotten to know you. You know what I mean? I know of you. Now I know you a little bit more. I'm thrilled that we got you in here in the ring spaces today. I'm shocked that we didn't know this sooner. We've been here a year and a half.
I know,
and longer than that, building this place out. So hopefully we have a long-term relationship. But I'm thrilled that you joined me today on Neil on Business, and I thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Neil on Business. If today's episode hit home, do me a favor. Leave a review, share it with a friend, and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next. And if you're ready to lead with clarity, courage, and confidence, keep showing up. Until next time, stay sharp, stay focused, and keep building. Again, this is Neil Darling from Ring Spaces Studio, and this is Neil on Business. We'll see you next time.